Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to learn more about this project that we are excited to get underway this year. I'm Ruthie Nave, Director of Cybersecurity Services here at MCNC, and have a great panel here with us. So we'll do introductions in just a second. But before that, wanted to make sure that I do a couple of housekeeping items. One, we are recording this session, so I will share out the video and the slides with everybody who registered after this call. We also have the chat disabled. I will paste a couple of links into the chat as the session goes on. But if you have questions for us, either during or at the end of the session, please post those in the Q&A session or section of the Zoom so that we can answer those either live or at the end. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Dave Furness to kick us off and do a round of introductions.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Dave Furness. I'm the Senior Director of Network Consulting at MCNC, and included in my team's responsibilities is providing engineering level support for Zscaler Web Security Service. So I think probably a lot of you have worked with Gons and Diane, who are on my team. So I'll be leading this webinar from the Zscaler perspective. I mentioned Gons. Gons is lead engineer on my team and subject matter expert on Zscaler. And then also on the webinar with us is Ian Hatfield. Ian is a senior network architect and has been kind of the SME on the PAN firewall, the Palo Alto Networks firewall, since we first began evaluating and rolling it out over 3 years ago. That's who you've got on the call, pretty much all the principals involved in this particular project. What I wanted to do, what we wanted to do today was just start with a little bit of context on why we're doing this, and then focus the majority of the discussion around how we're doing it, and the responsibilities for MCNC in this project and the responsibilities for the PSUs on this project. Fortunately, the PSUs have few responsibilities, and MCNC is doing the vast majority of the work on this. From what's motivating us to do this, basically what we're doing is we're moving the GRE tunnel source for Zscaler traffic redirection from the MCNC router to the MCNC managed PAN firewall on your premise. So this migration only applies if you are both a Zscaler user as well as a MCNC managed firewall user. I think most of you know, prior to moving to the PAN firewall, we were sourcing the tunnels at the CPE, and that was primarily because we were using the NCDIT ASA platform did not allow us to source the firewalls there. So now that we've moved to the PAN and the PAN has that capability, we're moving it to the PAN, and what that's going to allow us to do is to redirect traffic to the GRE tunnel, which will provide or give you the ability to view the private IP addresses in the Zscaler logs. This is something that the community's been asking for years. And finally, now that we've moved to the PAN, we're able to do that. So that's a big win. The other additional capability the PSUs will get will be the ability to do more granular policies based on private IPs. That's going to be still based on having to set up supplications, but again, having the ability to view and ability to set policies on private IP addresses is a big win. The other advantage is that we are going to a loopback addresses on the PAN firewall and the outside interface, so it improves the security posture of the device by eliminating all user traffic from originating directly to or from the outside interface. Where are we currently? We've been testing probably 6 months leading up to the October timeframe. In October, we migrated, or October, November, and December, we migrated 5 pilot or beta testing customers. One was a large PSU, a 15 gig PSU, and the other was a 3 gig PSU school district. And then we've also migrated 3 charter schools. So we've got a pretty good range of beta testing that we've done up to this point. That beta testing obviously has been very successful, or we wouldn't be moving forward with this migration. We've got 74 migrations that we need to complete between January and August. We're coordinating, as you know, with those 74 PSUs. And if you're on this webinar, chances are you were communicated to as a prioritized PSU. We sent out a questionnaire to get you guys on the schedule. And as of this morning, we had 38 out of the 74 prioritized PSUs that had responded to the questionnaire that we'd sent out. And you should have seen an email from us confirming that migration date and/or answering any questions that you may have had once you submitted your answers to the questionnaire. We'll have the remaining PSUs. So we have over 240 PSUs that are on the managed firewall service. The overlap between web security and Zscaler is, probably 215 or 220. I'm not sure the exact what the exact number is. But anyway, we'll be working with that balance of PSUs once we complete these 74, again, no later than August. We mentioned in the questionnaire that the maintenance window will be 2 to 4 hours, depending on the complexity of your configuration. So that's important to keep in mind. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. And the other very important point here is that in order for this to work, the MCNC managed PAN firewall needs to be directly connected to the MCNC CPE. So several PSUs, school districts, and charter schools have switches for various reasons between our CPE and our firewall. Those switches will have to be removed. We are creating, we have a pretty good inventory of that, who the PSUs are that have that configuration based on information gleaned from our firewall deployments. But we also ask that question on the questionnaire just so that we can reconcile your answers with what we've already got documented. We will be creating separate kind of smaller projects to work with you as needed to get those switches removed to alternative configurations prior to doing the GRE migration to the PAN firewall. Ruthie, Gons, Ian, anything? Okay. What I wanted to do then is to kind of walk you through the different phases of this project, and I'll defer to Gons and Ian here in a minute for a little more depth. We started out, as I mentioned already, by distributing a questionnaire to the 74 priority PSUs. If you haven't completed that questionnaire, hopefully you'll glean the information today that you need to get that completed. Once the questionnaire is returned to us, we create a ServiceNow case for each PSU project. In that case, the first thing we'll ask you for is a preferred time. So in the questionnaire, we asked you for a date. Our acknowledgement of that date will then ask for a time. Once we have that time, we'll send out a calendar invite so that you have it on your schedule. And I also, we will be creating calendar invites for Insono. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But basically, if you are a production Insono PSU we'll be doing that in a second maintenance window. This is a fairly complicated migration, and trying to coordinate the Ensona work at the same time we're coordinating the GRE migration work. We just felt like was going to complicate things a little too much, and we'd be better off creating a second window. But again, I'll talk more about that here in a minute. Heather Markley is the project manager from MCNC, who's coordinating all of our work activities. So when you get a response, if you haven't gotten one yet, from MCNC when the questionnaire is submitted, Heather will be the contact initially that will be listed on that case. So again, from your responsibility, providing a preferred date for the questionnaire. Once we acknowledge that date and send you a email via our ServiceNow system, give us a preferred time, and then accept the calendar invite. So from a logistical standpoint, that's kind of where we are, what we're working through right now. In terms of actual configuration work, there's a bunch of pre-work that's going on right now, and that's starting with some configuration on the Zscaler sublocation and GRE configuration for each PSU, and I'll let Gons talk for a second about that, if you would.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dave mentioned, your Zscaler UI is going to require some changes. If any of you have logged into your Zscaler UI recently, and this would be the ones that are flagged as priority for this first part of this project, you will notice that there are your internal subnets are in the sublocations as well as the PAT IP address that is on the firewall. The information that's in there was all pulled from your firewall configuration. So we took all the translations, pulled all the IP address subnets that were associated with those translations, and we put all that information into Zscaler. So if you look there now, like I said, you'll see that. Please do not change anything in there. After this migration is completed, we can work with you to make changes, because given the fact that you'll be able to see the internal IP addresses, you can actually be more granular with your sublocations than you were previously, because they were all based on the PAT. So just be aware of that there may be some changes you're going to want to make afterwards, but don't make any changes right now, because what's in there right now is going to work today as it worked yesterday, and it's going to work that way tomorrow when we do the configuration or the migration of the GREs. So just be aware of that. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there is. That's all I have, Dave.
All right. Thanks, Gons. Ian, if you could talk a little bit about the pre-work done on the WAN and CP side of the PAN.
Sure. So I'd say about a week before the maintenance window, you all should see some additional objects be added to your firewall. These are going to be some loopback addressing or loopback interfaces, some additional security policy, things like that. And that's just us getting ready for the maintenance window, trying to get as much in the firewall that's kind of inert and not doing anything as we can. So none of that new configuration will be in use until the maintenance window actually happens. But don't be alarmed when if you see some new things show up about a week before your maintenance window. Also, everyone's going to be getting a new CPE out of the 74. So we have our NOC going and creating a new config for you and getting all that ready. So someone will be coming on site during these maintenance windows. So we're going to do all that ahead of time. This also is I'm also going to be piggybacking off of Gonza's work and making new lists for all your policy-based routing, or as Palo Alto calls it, policy-based forwarding, to determine what traffic actually gets put in the tunnel. And once the maintenance window is over and those lists are in the firewall and being used, one additional benefit of moving these tunnels to the firewall is that you'll all be able to actually see what's in those lists, as they're just regular objects like you can see today. And that's about it for the pre-work.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. So again, from a PSU perspective on the pre-work, there's very little, if any. GONS may have reached out to one or two folks just to clarify some configurations on the sublocations for your Zscaler configuration. But for the most part, this is all work that MCNC is doing in preparation for the migration. During the maintenance window itself, again, 2 to 4 hours. We'll be sending out the calendar invites. Will be for 4 hours for everybody. There was a question asked, and just to make sure everybody's clear, there will be no internet service available from MCNC during the maintenance window, at least for the majority of the maintenance window. During the maintenance window, Ian mentioned really the first thing is to remove or replace the MCNC CPE. In a lot of PSUs, certainly in the 74 that we're talking about as priority 1 migrations, that's ASR 1000 series Cisco router. We'll be pulling that router out and replacing it with a newer 920, Cisco 920 series router. Or if depending on how you're currently, if you're on net MCNC's fiber, there may already be a 920 there. So the work will be to essentially pull the MCNC router out and plug the PAN directly into the 920 that's already at your site. But again, there will be some physical reconfiguration work that will take place at every PSU as part of this migration. Ian and GONS, you want to pick it up from there and talk about the other work that's taken place during the maintenance window?
Sure. So one thing that needs to be done is we are going to be migrating the Global Protect portal and gateway. So if you currently get to Global Protect via DNS and you control your DNS entries, at the beginning of the call, we'll have you update your Global Protect DNS so that it can propagate in enough time to be valid at the end of the maintenance window. We also would like you to change the TTL of that record before the maintenance window so that that update happens a lot faster than it usually would. Another thing we'd like to do is migrate the site-to-site VPN tunnels, the IPsec tunnels, if you have any. This excludes the Insono ones, which Dave has talked about. We do realize that, if someone has a lot of tunnels and there's no way to get that, maybe a third-party person who controls the other end of the tunnel on the maintenance window, we do have a contingency plan to not have to migrate those. But of course, we would like to migrate them as quickly as possible. The outside interface is going to change. That's also in line with the CPE changing out. And then after that, we'll go ahead and push all the other changes to the firewall once we have connectivity after the CPE change. And that'll be the bulk of the Zscaler changes. After all that, we'll clean up a couple things and have you test functionality to make sure nothing is broken. And we should be good to go.
So as Ian mentioned about the IPsec tunnels, so if you have like AWS or Azure tunnels that you manage yourself, we would like you to be ready to change the destinations for those tunnels so that we can move those tunnels. But as Ian mentioned, we know that some folks have connections for VoIP with a third-party provider, and we're happy to have a different time set up to do that change. But if there is something that's within your control, we'd like to do it during this maintenance window because that would just be the least amount of downtime moving forward.
Okay, very good. And then in terms of post-migration, we have, the primary focus is again will be on the VPN piece. Production and Sono PSUs will work with you to schedule a secondary maintenance window. And that maintenance window will be much shorter. And during that maintenance window, basically, we'll migrate from what will be essentially a temporary configuration to the permanent configuration, and Insono will be changing the destination IPs on those tunnels. And then we'll look for you to, confirm that's working properly. We can do some testing as well, which we will do during that. But again, if you're production Insono PSU, we'll need to schedule a second maintenance window to do that. The archive PSUs, there's no maintenance window that will be required. We'll work with Insono in the background. We'll get those tunnels migrated, and then we will notify you when they've been migrated so that you can test at your convenience. Ian mentioned the site-to-site IPsec VPN tunnels that are not related to Insono. Again, our preference would be to get those done during the maintenance window, but certainly recognize that may not be possible. So we'll work with you as necessary to get those additional tunnels migrated at your earliest convenience. Ruthie, Gonzi, and anything else?
Nope, I think that was it.
All right. To get the question portion of this going, we threw out some sample questions that we thought folks might have, and maybe this is just reiterating what we already said. But one of the questions for user traffic that's not redirected to Zscaler, so it's not GRE encapsulated, will web applications see a new range of public IP addresses from my PSU? And the answer to that is no. The network address translation IP address pools used by the PAN for non-Zscaler traffic will not change. So some of you that have IP addresses registered maybe for IP authentication with some web app, those netted IP addresses will not change. For user traffic redirect to the Zscaler proxy, so that is traffic that we're sending through Zscalers, will web applications see a new range of addresses for my PSU? Again, the answer to that is no. When Zscaler proxies traffic, source IP of the user is replaced by a pool of Zscaler proxy IPs. Since the Zscaler proxies are on MCNC's network, those are addresses assigned by MCNC, and we're not changing those addresses. So again, if you have vendors that are expecting a particular IP address, and in some cases we do have IP authentication going through Zscaler, those range of IP addresses will not change either. Should we expect network downtime during the maintenance window? As I mentioned previously, yes. Internet service will be down during the maintenance window, certainly the majority of that maintenance window. And then we've had some questions about, is it too early? When's it too early, or how late is it to start the maintenance window? Our recommendation, again, this is something that's going to take 2 to 4 hours. It's not a trivial migration. So we're discouraging doing this early morning of an instructional day. We would suggest that it's done after hours. I think most of you would be doing that anyway. Our preference is to start no later than 6 p.m. Obviously, we prefer to, start when school's getting out in the 4 or 5 o'clock time range. But if that's not possible, we'd sure like to not start after 6. But again, the caveat on that is always, we'll accommodate whatever schedule, you have to accommodate as the PSU. So we'll certainly, again, if it needs to be 7 or if it needs to be 8, we'll certainly support that. But just get a good night's sleep before before the migration. Anyway, that's 4 basic questions. Ruthie, well, I'll go through this, I guess, and then we'll jump to the questions slide. So again, I mentioned that we're creating tickets or cases in ServiceNow to track this work. I encourage you that you communicate with us via that case. That way, we'll have PM eyes on it, we'll have full team eyes on it, and we'll have a record of what's going on. If we start communicating out of band, out of the case, then we lose a little bit of that visibility. For informational support, so if it's not specific to your deployment, you have any general questions, certainly feel free to email securityservices@mcnc.org. Ruthie and I are both escalation points on this project. So if for some reason you're having issues, you have concerns, if anything's not getting addressed, certainly feel free to email Ruthie or myself as an escalation contact for this project, and we will certainly do our best to get that issue resolved. So Ruthie, I think you've been monitoring the Q&A. I'll turn this over to you and let you drive that.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So I don't actually have any open questions at this point. So now is the time. If you guys have additional questions about the content that's been shared here, go ahead and pop that in the Q&A and we can get those answered live. I'll make a couple of extra comments while you guys are going to start feverishly typing us really good and detailed questions. I did put in the Zoom chat the link to the questionnaire. I actually have seen a couple of people already register while we've been on the webinar. So thank you very much for going ahead and grabbing your time slot. I do want to point out that we actually have a January 28th and a February 4th date available. So those are sort of the first available dates if you want to go ahead and get on the calendar sooner rather than later, so you can start seeing the benefits of that. Those previously not have been available, and now they've opened back up again. So just wanted to let you know in case you wanted to get this done sooner rather than later. Another thing that our project manager recommended, if Dave, if you want to maybe, I don't know if it's helpful to scroll back to the question slide, but Dave's comment about recommending not doing it before an instructional day begins, or recommending not after 6 p.m. If you already have a time preference when you select your date in the questionnaire, there is a additional comments field immediately after that question that you can just proactively push that to us if you want. So if you select that January 28th date and say, I want it to start at 6 p.m., go ahead and put that, and then once you get that case from our project management team, it'll already have that date or in time confirmed for you. If not, we will go through the regular process of, blocking down that time for you once you respond to the questionnaire. So that's all that I have extra. Still no questions in the Q&A, which means that we've hit the mark perfectly on adding just enough content that you guys don't have any questions for us. So happy to hang out for just a minute or so if you guys have any questions. Also happy to give you your time back. We will, like I said, share the recording and the slide deck with you if you registered and attended the session, so that you can share that with anyone else on your team that you think may benefit from seeing this content. Another thing, if we get down to it and we get through everyone who's registered, if you're still not on the list, you haven't responded, we will be proactively reaching out to you to try and get you on the schedule. So definitely recommend you picking the date that works best for you rather than us calling you. All right, so I've vamped long enough, and look at that question in the section. So if we use Google to authenticate to GPVPN, will we need to change that method?
No, that will still work the way it does. The only thing that changes is the IP address that the fully qualified domain name references.
Great. Thanks, Gons. Any other questions? Dave, Gons, Ian, anything else that you guys want to add while we're still here?
No, I think I'm good. We might want to incorporate into our project if we can figure it out a way to remind PSUs that manage their own DNS to change the time to live if they can before the migration. Or GONS, is that something they can do just at the start of the migration and we can remind them to do it then?
Well, the standard time to live is like 4 hours. So
Yeah.
if you do it at the start of the migration, yeah, it may work after, but you may want to test it before we get off the phone or the Zoom call. So I would probably, if I'm going to change the TTL, I would probably change it to maybe like, an hour or 30 minutes. You don't want to do that regularly because that's a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, it has to be referenced every single time if you do it like that. So just be aware of that. 4 hours is a standard. Probably would make it about an hour, 30 minutes prior to the migration. Maybe, that morning, you'd probably be fine. And the reason for that, once again, is so that as soon as you test it, it should automatically give you the correct answer.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, GONS.
I did have a question that just came in about, hey, I already scheduled my date, but now that I know the time frames, that date's not actually going to work for me. What do I need to do? So if you have already registered, you should have received a case from us, from our project manager, an email that would have pushed to you, that would start that process for scheduling that maintenance window for you. So if you need to change your date, communicate with the project manager via that email. If you just registered like 2 minutes ago and then realized, oh, that date doesn't work for me, just kidding, I need another one, go ahead and grab a second date. And Heather, as she's going through and looking at the responses, will release the date that you picked and didn't need anymore. You can just add that as a second comment to your second request. So next question just came in. Which DNS entries does the time to live need to be changed for?
Just the one that you use to access the VPN. So if it's like vpn.psu at k12.nc.us, that's the record you're going to change the TTL on.
Excellent. Thanks, Gons.
And I'll just throw out there also a note, not everybody has Global Protect. So if you don't have it, it's not something you have to do.
Good point.
And if you're unsure of whether or not you manage your own DNS records, let us know. We can definitely find that answer for you.
Absolutely. All right, I don't see anything else in the queue, so I am happy to give you guys some times back on your calendar this afternoon. Look for some emails from us. We all look forward to working on this project with you, and we're excited to get this kicked off. Dave, Gons, Ian, anything else? It's a parting comment?
Nope. Thanks, Ruthie, and greatly appreciate everybody's participation and interest in this project.
Absolutely. Thanks all.